The kidnapping of the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his good wife and their illegal rendering to the state of New York so that the Southern District of New York can prosecute them for, get this, possession of machine guns. Yes, that's right. The president of a sovereign state is being charged in the United States, which eschews all gun laws, is in part an indictment that he is in possession of machine guns. He's charged with several other items, but none of them will get past the gate, at least not in front of any self-respecting judge, because the whole world knows that Nicolas Maduro ain't no drug runner. The drug runners are in Rubio's fiefdom of Miami, Florida. The piracy of the high seas over the last few weeks, where well over 100 people have been murdered by the United States Air Force, people whose names not even they know, never mind us, people against whom no evidence has been produced, was superseded for sure just 48 hours or so ago when a full-scale attack on the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, was mounted from air, land and sea. We know that, at least in part, there must have been boots on the ground, because how else could they have kidnapped Nicolas Maduro? And why did they do so? And why did they kidnap his wife? And what is the world going to do about this act of international brigandage, this atrocious attack on all that matters in terms of the United Nations Charter, in terms of international law, in terms of the sovereignty of states, in terms of the membership of the United Nations? Well, the answer so far in the West is absolutely nothing at all. The European Union, which has never done levelling sanctions, 20 rounds now of sanctions against Russia for its illegitimate breach of the sovereignty of the state of Ukraine, and which has everything to say about Russia, nothing to say about Israel, and even less to say about what happened in Venezuela. As far as they're concerned, they're watching it closely. But anyway, Maduro was a bad man. And that opens a Pandora's box that they might be surprised to see the end result of. The Greek Prime Minister wholeheartedly welcomed Donald Trump's illegal kidnapping of a head of state, because he thinks that that head of state is illegitimate. But that opens the way now for Turkey to get justice for Turkish Cypriots, and my bet is on them doing just that. That opens the way for Moscow to land helicopters in Kiev and kidnap little Zelensky and bring him to Moscow and put him on trial. I don't know, maybe the Southern District of Moscow can put Zelensky on trial for possession of machine guns or cocaine or whatever it is they find on his person when they do it. It opens the way now for China to kidnap the president of Taiwan, fly him to Beijing and try him for acts of treason against the People's Republic of China. And nobody could complain, because even the Americans, the British, the French, in fact, everybody in the world regards Taiwan as a part of China. So China would only be attacking itself, its own territory. And of course, that would be the end of Taiwan. Kidnapping Zelensky would be the end of the Ukraine as a sovereign nation state. But Venezuela is not finished, not by a long chalk. To paraphrase Mr. Churchill, the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro is not the beginning of the end, but merely the end of the beginning, because the Hugo Chavez revolution in Venezuela is extant and intact, and its prince across the water, Nicolas Maduro, will give a very good account of himself in the courtroom. Be sure of that. In fact, Maduro and his wife are about to become international icons. Icons of freedom and resistance, and icons of the sheer ugliness of today's America. Naked and ugly. Donald Trump metamorphosing into Caligula in front of our eyes, even physically, facially. He is becoming Caligula in front of our eyes. And the person who will be on trial in the Southern District of New York will not be Nicolas Maduro. It'll be Donald Trump. It'll be American imperialism. It'll be tariffs and sanctions. It'll be the enduring, ineluctable drive for war and exploitation of other people's resources that is personified, crystallized, perfectly represented by Donald J. Trump. If you asked Grok if Grok is still a thing, to paint a picture of late 21st century American imperialism, the face would be that of Donald Trump, who in a train wreck of a speech, I don't know, they say he doesn't drink, but he sure sounded drunk to me. Perhaps it was a sense of shock at what he had just done. But he was perfectly cogent when it came to the reasons. He's going to run Venezuela for the time being, don't you know? He's going to run a massive country 3 times the size of Vietnam from Washington, D.C., and with not a single U.S. soldier on the ground. If you believe that, I've got a bridge in London I could sell you going cheap. Do you think the movement of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro and Kelsey Rodriguez, the now acting president of Venezuela, are going to allow you to run Venezuela for the time being until you have decided who is going to take Maduro's place? You're a lunatic if you think that. If you want Venezuela's oil, Trump, you're going to have to invade it. And you're going to have to invade it with hundreds of thousands of soldiers, just like the United States did in Vietnam. Has anyone told you what happened in that war that you couldn't make, that you got 7 deferments for on account of your bone spurs? Because you didn't want to die face down in a rice paddy in Southeast Asia, did you? You didn't want to go and fight, but you send other people's sons and daughters to go and fight for you. You're a chicken shit, chicken hawk, Donald Trump. Peace president. You're an animal. You're a filthy animal, Donald Trump. That's what you are. And when you were sat there in Florida with your bosom buddy, Netanyahu, what's he got on you? Oh, we know what he's got on you, all right. You can fly all the way to Caracas and kidnap a head of state and make him face American justice. But you've got literally millions of documents, millions of them, maybe 5 million documents on the Epstein affair, and you haven't been able to arrest a single person. You haven't been able to do jack shit about your best friends being involved in trafficking children for illegal sexual purposes. Not one arrest. Hillary Clinton, lock her up. When is she getting locked up? You haven't locked up one person who cheated you in the presidential election of 2020. You haven't locked up one person who crafted the Russiagate hoax, which wrecked the entirety of your first term as American president. Not one has been locked up, but you can go all the way to Caracas to seize, kidnap illegally a man and his wife, the president and the first lady of Venezuela. You're a chicken shit, chicken hawk, Caligula. That's what you are. You couldn't fight your own way out of a wet paper bag, even when you were young enough to have bone spurs. You chickened out of Vietnam, but you're creating a new Vietnam in Venezuela. Moreover, you're threatening other people that they're next. And I don't just mean Iran, to which I turn in just a minute, and about which we will interview the wonderful Professor Syed Mohammed Marandi in just a few moments. I'm talking about Greenland. One of your senior officials published a picture of Danish sovereign territory, Greenland, a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. She published a picture of Denmark with the United States stars and stripes on it, saying, "You're next." This Denmark, the most slavish supporter of NATO, the most slavish supporter of von der Leyen, your concubine in Brussels. This Denmark, which has backed you in every crime that the United States has committed in the world. This Denmark, which, by the way, was the first country in Europe to recognize the illegal NATO breakaway state of Kosovo, an act of brazen illegality which required you to bomb the people of Serbia, the great capital of Belgrade. Denmark supported it. And now their friend and ally, Caligula, is threatening to take their sovereign territory, if necessary, by force, an Article 5 offense. Oh, wait, can one member of NATO, Article 5, another member of NATO? I'm asking for some Danish friends, you see. But of course, that's not the only country on the radar for the Caracas treatment from Caligula. No, he's openly threatening with his fellow mafia boss. Which one is the capo de tutti capo? Who knows? Who's the boss? Donald? Is it Netanyahu? Is he up your arse or something? Who rules the 5 families that were set up down in Florida for the New Year celebration? Is it you? Or is it your concubine? Or are you his concubine? These are the questions we're all asking now. But whoever is doing whom, whoever's the jockey, whoever's the mount, the two of you concocted a plan to launch a new war against Iran. But you may well be biting off more than you can chew there, Donald. Don't even dream of landing helicopters in downtown Tehran. Have you seen Tehran? Have you seen the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps? Don't even dream of it, Donald. In fact, I'm tempted to hope that you do think and do it. But I better not go further down that line, or Professor Marandi might be angry with me. But be sure, if you and Netanyahu attack Iran again, then you remember those potentates, They're not really big enough to be potentates, are they? You remember these satraps that gave you all those jewels, all that gold, all that money, all those Boeing 747s on your last tour of the Gulf? They'll all be gone, Donald. They will not exist. No oil or gas will be produced for years in the Persian Gulf. Nothing will flow through the waterways, for there will be nothing to flow. All of your satrapies will cease to exist. And guess what? The fire that will rain down on Tel Aviv, on occupied Palestine, will finish the state of Israel for good. Maybe you won't have the bottle to do that. There are all kinds of questions which arise, of course, in relation to what happened in Caracas. And we're going to deal with as many of them as we can on the show this evening. But I want to say a couple of things that will be uncomfortable to my friends in Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro was surely betrayed from within. You cannot fly Black Hawks across Caracas without fearing manpads, thousands of manpads. You cannot fly Black Hawk helicopters full of American special forces across the skyline in Caracas without attracting any meaningful anti-aircraft fire. You cannot kidnap the president of the Bolivarian Republic with a few dozen or even a few hundred US special forces unless there is a Trojan horse present, unless there are traitors abroad. Somebody betrayed Nicolas Maduro. Somebody close betrayed Nicolas Maduro. And we intend, if we can, to find out whom. For sure, it is a bitter blow to the Venezuelan people that their president, who has the support of 1 million armed Venezuelans and millions of the poorest Venezuelans, it's a bitter blow. But it's not over, as they say, until the fat lady sings. And the fat lady is Donald J. Trump. I'll be right back. It's the mother of all talk shows.